afternoon. Welcome to Columbia Rotary for August the 3rd, 2015. We're glad you're here. Got a nice group today for our program. We'll get started with the singing of our national anthem, led by Jerry Payton. Thank you, Jerry. Steve Bryant has our invocation today.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this day that you've given us, its blessings, its opportunities, as well as the challenges that come our way. We pray for strength and guidance as we meet the challenges and to approach all of our endeavors with a spirit of kindness and helpfulness. As we gather here today as members of Rotary, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render service to our fellow citizens and to our community. We reaffirm our commitment to the Rotary four-way test for all we do and support. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? We reaffirm our commitment to high ethics in all we do. Father, as we now begin today's program, let us enjoy the fellowship with each other and be with our speaker. Bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies, and bless the hands that prepared it. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Steve. Steve is actually in charge of our cart fund this year, so with this prayer, it reminds me that we should contribute to the cart fund. Go ahead and put a couple dollars into the bucket today. And Steve and his committee are in charge of collecting that money and contributing that money to Alzheimer's research. Let's see, for our visiting Rotarians and guests, Karen Blackman will welcome everyone.
Welcome to everyone today. We're so thrilled to have you here. Oh, closer. Okay. All right. Welcome to our Rotary Club today. We're thrilled that you're here, and we have 4 visiting Rotarians. Sorry, I'm not getting close enough to the mic. Beaver Hardy from Columbia East. Jimmy Williamson from Chiraw. Joel Collins from Lake Murray. And Derek Saxby from Blakewood. Thank you for attending today. And we have, I know, several guests, so if you would, oh, sorry, did I miss somebody? Oh, yeah. If you're a guest, please raise your hand. Meredith's going to come around and bring the mic. Here's Meredith.
I brought today Woods and Buddy and I, we were together of Governor Beasley. He was actually a member of this Rotary Club before he moved to Washington to work in the White House under President Bush.
I'm Jack Sloan, and for my guest today I have Rebecca Jordan, who is the new Executive Director for Central South Carolina Red Cross. And also, her father was a member of this club, Al Stefano, a noted psychiatrist, and I'll have to close it out by telling you, she grew up inside the walls there.
I have as my guest Sarah Anders, who's the Media Director at Chernoff Community.
my guest is my nephew, Forrest Walker, who's a rising freshman at Chapin High School.
I'll speak up. This is my wife, Caroline. She is an educator at Richmond too, and she's not counting the days till.
Did we miss anyone?
I saw Jim Hudson come in, I think, another visiting Rotarian.
Okay.
So, welcome, there he is in the back, Jim Hudson.
Thank you all for coming today, as always, and we look forward to our program.
Thank you, Karen. For health and happiness today, Wes Hickman will come up and tell us what's going on.
Good afternoon, everybody. Even though I'm not an educator, I do work at the university, so I am counting down the days until the students get back on campus and make it a lot more exciting for us all. A couple of things today. Number one, Catherine Kennedy has been honored with the South Carolina Bar's Robert P. Wilkins Probate and Estate Award for her service to the practice of probate, estate, and trust law in South Carolina. So that's very exciting. In health-related news, Ben Connell, who many of you may remember led our singing here for many years, broke a hip the other day, and so let's all keep him in our thoughts and prayers as he recovers. One quick thing, I don't want to steal anybody's thunder from later on in the program, but next week's speaker, Steve Towns, who is the chair of the South Carolina Aerospace Association. Just a quick plug for myself and Anne-Marie Stieritz. We're co-hosting an aerospace conference August 26th and 27th, and Steve Towns will also be the keynote speaker at that. So if anybody's interested in it, let us know, and we'd be happy to get you hooked up with the appropriate information. Also, Robert Goings. Where did Robert go? There he is. Okay. So Robert, he said this has not been announced yet in Rotary. He and his beautiful wife Rebecca are having a little girl in October. Grayson Middleton will be her name. And then finally, another shameless plug for the university, just a little teaser. Tomorrow at noon, Cocky will have a special announcement at the State House. So anybody that doesn't have anything to do tomorrow around noon, please come join us at the State House or follow him on Twitter. And I promise you it'll be a fun time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wes. I do have a couple of announcements I want to make today before we have our speaker present. If you've noticed, over the last few weeks, you've probably noticed the issues we've had with our microphones. I've received some feedback on that, and we're working on it. In fact, the leadership team met last week with Cal and Robbie Sewell to see if they could help us with the microphones and the AV. And it is on their radar screen. They are going to do something about it. So hopefully in a few weeks, we'll have microphones that work like they should. You got one that cracks and one that's you just about have to eat as you're speaking. So we're working on that. I'll also let you know a change to our quarterly invoice. You're used to getting those invoices each quarter from Rotary. Debbie McDonald spends a lot of time on those, and at the very bottom, over the last couple of years, you've seen a $50 suggested donation to Rotary Foundation, the Rotary International Foundation. That money goes to support our global efforts as an organization. Going forward, you're going to have a $25 donation, suggested donation to Rotary International, and a $25 suggested donation to the Columbia Rotary Education Foundation, which, not to complicate things, but the two are different in the sense that the Columbia Rotary Education Foundation money stays local, and that money is distributed to high school students through our college scholarship program. So You'll see that change on your invoice, which should be in the mail this week. So I want to make everyone aware of that. If you'd like to continue to contribute all of your money to the Rotary International Foundation, you can do that. Just notate it on the check and let Debbie know. But we're encouraging you to contribute to both as we go forward. Third announcement I have, there are 2 fall events that are just around the corner. You'll hear a lot more about these over the next few weeks. We're going to have a Harvest Hope food packing project in September, where many of us will actually go to the Harvest Hope Food Bank site and pack food and distribute that food somewhere in our community. Much more to come on that in the next few weeks. That'll be in the month of September. And then in October, we'll have a fall social. Robert Goings, Jesse Bullard are working hard on and planning an event in the middle of October. So I wanted to make you all aware of those 2 opportunities coming up. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan Milling, who's going to introduce our program. Jonathan is a member of our club for the last 3 or 4 years. He joined in 2012 and is in charge of the Rotary Foundation for us this year. Jonathan.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Mark and John have asked me to, reintroduce myself and provide a little bit more information about myself and my law firm. Speak up. I think that's the first time I've ever been told I'm not loud enough. Again, my name is Jonathan Milling. As Mark said, I joined the club in 2012. I've got my own law firm here in town. Milling Law Firm. I started the firm in 2007, and I practiced there with my wife, Sydney, who is a lawyer as well as a CPA. As if I ever had a chance of winning any arguments in my house, the fact that she's a lawyer, not a chance. We've got 4 beautiful children, 2 sets of twins, actually, 2 7-year-old boys, a 5-year-old boy, and a 5-year-old girl. So, as you can imagine, not only do we have a busy office, but also a busy house. Looking at my last name, I am a cousin of Bob Milling, who's another member of this club. Bob, in case y'all don't know, I think Bob's got 7 daughters, and a true story, Bob and I also go to church together at Trinity. But we had someone come up to us after church one Sunday, come to me and said, "Oh, did you marry one of Bob's daughters?" Well, I like the last name, but not enough to take it. But anyway, we are cousins. I went to Clemson for undergrad, South Carolina for law school, so no Wofford connection. But Mark would be remiss if he didn't ask me to point out that my brother did go to Wofford, and so Mark's essentially asked me to serve as consigliere under the Mafia. So I am from Darlington, which is the connection that I've got with today's speaker, Chip Wile. Chip, in August of 2013, was named as the 9th president of the Darlington Raceway. He is a native of Atlanta, Georgia. Got his degree from the University of Georgia in 2002. He is married to Catherine, and they have 3 children, another set of twins, twin boys Rigsby and Woodson, and a daughter, Jane Elise. Please, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines and give a warm Rotary welcome to Chip Wile.
It hurts me to be this close to that stadium over there. I almost turned around when I got here because it makes me real nervous. You guys beat us every year. Like Jonathan said, thanks to all of you guys for allowing me to come talk to you about the Bojangles Southern 500 and all the things that we've been able to accomplish over the last 2 years since I took over as a president at the racetrack. A little bit of background on me. Grew up in Atlanta. My mom and dad actually went to school in Spartanburg. My dad is in the Hall of Fame at Wofford. He played football there and is on the board of directors. And my mom went to, my mother went to Converse. So we always had a tie with South Carolina. And I remember growing up going to Wofford football games, like, I'd never lived in South Carolina. And then in my freshman year of college, I happened to go back to Florence, South Carolina, where we now live. And I went there for an event, and I said, I'll never live in Florence. That's 2 nevers that I've actually done in the last 2 years. But we really enjoy South Carolina. We enjoy the atmosphere here. We love being in Florence. We love the opportunity to work at Darlington Raceway. I started in the NASCAR business right out of college, so I remember telling my dad when I got the job to go work for an agency who specifically focused on NASCAR marketing, that I was going to work for the sport or work in the sport, and he said, "I've spent all this money on your education, you're going to go do what?" And I said, "I'm going to go work for NASCAR." And he obviously had never been to a race, and he's like, he actually said some words that I can't repeat today, and started to figure out how I was going to repay him for all of my education. But then he went to a race, and he figured out the NASCAR machine, and he figured out how this sport continues to bloom and grow, and he did stop. He said, "I get it now." So my dad, who hates big events, he hates large crowds, he hates noises, comes to about 8 NASCAR races a year. So it just goes to show you that if you've never been to a NASCAR race and you have a perception of what it's about, I encourage you to come, because it's very different. So started the sport at 22, traveled the circuit, got a job working for a race team doing public relations. That turned into team management, and I spent the next 10 years traveling the country 250 days a year, seeing racetracks and our beautiful country. Like Jonathan said, my wife came home one day and said, "We're pregnant." We went to the doctor and found out that we were having 2 boys. It took about 6 weeks to settle in. Obviously my priority in life is my family and my children and being a dad. And so traveling 250 days a year didn't sit well with me or my wife, so talked about getting out of the sport altogether. And I had an opportunity to go work for International Speedway Corporation, who owns Darlington, with one of the other business units. So ISC owns 13 racetracks across the country, some of which are Daytona, obviously us here in South Carolina, Talladega, Richmond, Kansas. We have a track in California. So we span the United States. We're a publicly traded company. We're a $650 million company. So to have the opportunity to go work with them was something I certainly jumped all over, and I didn't have to travel as much. At least that's what they said. And then the first year I traveled 230 days a year, so it wasn't as bad. But my wife threatened divorce, so I said, okay, we got to figure something out. So had the opportunity 2 summers ago. They offered me the opportunity to come to Darlington, and if you guys have never been to Darlington, it's the Wrigley Field of NASCAR. Right, it was built in 1950. It's got that old feel, that old touch. You know, that you drive through the tunnel and you feel something special, like you do when you go to iconic sporting venues or places like that place across the street that I won't mention. There's just something special about it, and to even be considered for the position of president was a big deal. So I obviously didn't even call Catherine. I went ahead and accepted the job and told her we were moving to Florence, and told her that she called Jonathan if she needed a good lawyer, because we were doing this, and of course she jumped on it. And so we've been here now 2 years at the end of this month. And when I got there, the first thing I recognized was the value that the property has for the community. Right, Darlington County is all about the racetrack. That's their identity. That's what the community all rallies around. And we weren't holding up our end of the bargain. We had one event weekend a year, which was the NASCAR races. But we didn't have anything else to hang our hat on throughout the year to be a good community partner. So we immediately went to work and started to figure out other things we could use the facility for outside of the NASCAR weekend that maybe wouldn't generate a ton of revenue, but we would hold up our end of the bargain as being a community leader. So we do a barbecue festival in November, which I would encourage you all to come to. It's actually the best event we do all year. It's 2 days, all the barbecue you can eat. We have live bands. We have a number of activities for kids, vendors out. So that was a checkbox. Then we decided to do a marathon. Obviously, I didn't run in it, but we did hold one. We're going to continue to do that next year. That's been a rewarding event. We started last year a 4th of July festival. The PD doesn't have a big 4th of July festival like they do here in Columbia. And we went to work with the Chamber of Commerce, and the first year we did an event, we were expecting 3,000 to 5,000 people, so we prepared for that, and 13,000 people showed up. Yeah, so we were a little understaffed, but we got it done. And then this year we did it a second year. We elevated the game. We brought in a big band and did bigger fireworks display. And we had 30,000 people there. Wow. Yeah, free event to the public. which for me is really important. Really important that we continue to build the community in Darlington County, because that, again, we're the folks people look to. We've done free movie nights, which is really fun. Like I said, I have 2 5-year-olds, so I try to figure out events that will entertain them. And so we do these free movie nights in the spring where we bring in a big outdoor movie screen and show movies in the park for free for our community. We did planes and cars this year, and we gave away free popcorn, had kids game. The best game of kickball I've ever played was this year. It was pretty serious. So again, we're continuing to build out that schedule outside of our race weekend, but obviously our main focus and our main revenue driver is Labor Day weekend. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but our race was on Labor Day weekend for 50 plus years. About 12 years ago, NASCAR, because something we couldn't control, took that date and gave us Mother's Day, which people said wouldn't work, but it did work. And then last year we moved to April, which people said wouldn't work, and it worked. But when they called me and said that we had the opportunity to get Labor Day back, would I be interested? I said, yes, let's sign the papers right now. Because unfortunately, we've delivered bad messages to our community and to our state over the last 12 years. The economic impact that our race has on our state is almost $60 million. $60 million in one weekend. That's the economic impact of the NASCAR. So for us to be able to deliver good news to our local community, to the state, has been fun and really rewarding, and we've seen the benefit. We have more partners that are spending incremental money with us. We have race fans coming from around the globe to be a part of our weekend, and NASCAR is full of tradition, but the Southern 500 on Labor Day weekend is something that has been a staple and will continue to be a staple. And I think the response that we've gotten from the community, from the industry, and from our great race fans has been incredible, absolutely incredible. So we're hoping that all of you have your tickets. If not, I need you to buy them today, and I can give you the number. But Labor Day weekend is a big deal, and as part of Labor Day weekend, we started talking about this idea, which is a little bit different than, obviously it's a big event feel, right? It's like having the Super Bowl in the state of South Carolina every year. But we wanted to differentiate our event. We wanted to make it an event that people couldn't miss. And in order to do that, we had to come up with an idea. And the idea was, every major sporting league in the country has a weekend where they celebrate the history of the sport. Think about the NFL and what they do. They do throwback jerseys. Major League Baseball has around the All-Star game where they bring in all the Hall of Famers and let them be a part of it. NASCAR has not done a good job of providing an outlet for people to celebrate how we got here. As you guys know, this sport was started in the Southeast and has grown to international success, but we haven't forgotten our roots. And I feel like there's a great opportunity at Darlington, being what it is and how important it is to the industry, to be able to provide that outlet. So we went to work. Luckily, we've had 18 months to be able to plan for this, but we're calling it the Tradition Returns Platform. And basically, we have outlined a platform that includes every industry stakeholder. So teams are all doing retro paint schemes. So you'll have the 17 car they're announcing next week will have a David Pearson retro paint scheme. The 4 car announced a couple of months ago that it's doing a gold car, which was the first Budweiser can ever created. So I would say almost half of the field will be in retro or some sort of a retro feel race car, which is incredible because generally you don't see that kind of support from the industry. We're bringing 14 Hall of Famers. NASCAR Hall of Famers will be a part of our weekend. So you'll have Dale Lindman here, who was Richard Petty's crew chief. Richard Petty will be here. Cale Yarborough will be here. But Bobby Allison will be here. I can name all. Everybody, basically, if you're alive and you can walk, you're going to be here. And we're gonna include them in a number of things throughout the weekend that will impact our fans. Right, so we're doing a Legends breakfast on Sunday morning where all 14 of these guys are going to sit on a panel like this and tell stories about how they got here to 2,000 fans. And things like that, that's content that everybody in NASCAR right now is trying to find, not just in NASCAR, in professional sports. You're trying to find that unique content that makes people want to be a part of your event. Because let's face it, everybody in this room, when you buy a ticket to something, you expect more than just going to the event, right? So that's our job, is to be able to provide the additional content, the additional exposure to things that make you feel like you got the value out of your ticket. So we'll have all these retro, we're having Grand Funk Railroad play the pre-race concert. They had the #1 hit in 1972. I've learned, I wasn't even born in 72, but I've learned a lot about the early 70s. Tanya Tucker singing our national anthem. So again, we're having a lot of these really cool retro things, and it's been amazing to see the support we've received from our industry. When I threw this idea out to all the folks at NASCAR, they were like, it's a great idea. You go do it, and we'll see how it goes. That always tends to be. So we did it, and now they're all trying to jump on board, and we're going to make this a 5-year platform that we, again, celebrate different time periods within the sport. But it's really, really going to be neat. So I would encourage you all, and you guys are all influencers in Columbia and around the Southeast. I would encourage you to use your sphere of influence to help make this event the biggest and the best event we've ever had. There are a lot of people looking at us from NASCAR to make sure that this event is successful. They took a risk to give us Labor Day weekend back. That's a date on the calendar that people, it's coveted. It's something that people really look at. It's a big date, and to give it to our little racetrack that has 12 employees is a big deal. And we need the support of each and every one of you and your sphere of influence to make sure that we sell the place out and that we get the support that we need in order to make next year's event even bigger. So with that, I'll answer any questions you guys have. I can give you the dirt on race car drivers if you want it. Yeah, but yes, ma'am.
I was actually going to ask that, just being nosy. I'm sure you've met all of the drivers, or most of them, and who surprised you at being maybe the nicest, and maybe who surprised you as being not so?
Yeah. So I know. This is a tight-knit community, right? All the race car drivers. You spend a lot of time together. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. There are certain folks that you, just like in any community, you like more than others. Kevin Harvick's one of my best friends. Tony Stewart's one of my best friends, and I'll tell you, Tony Stewart gets a bad rap. The man has the biggest heart of anybody in the business. I remember when my wife was pregnant with Jane Alice, our youngest, we were headed to Daytona for the race, and I was nervous about not being able to be back for her birth, and he called me and said, "You don't need to worry about her, I'll fly you home." Yeah, so, and then the normal suspects that you would think that aren't as nice, right? The Bushes, the Kurt and Kyle Busch, they're interesting folks. If you met their parents, you'd understand why they're so weird. Their mother's name is Gay Bush. Gay Bush, that's her name. And her dad is this weird fella that he doesn't sleep at night, he sleeps during the day. It's a very bizarre situation. So they're very unique. Again, they kind of live in their own circles. But the majority of our community truly is they rally around each other, right? And that's the one thing about NASCAR that I truly love, is that in times of need, right, everybody in the business rallies. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what happened to Tony Stewart last year. He unfortunately got caught up in an accident that and took a fellow's life. And the support that he got from our community was incredible. And I truly believe it's what made him get through that tragedy, is knowing that he had the support of all the folks in our business. Yes, sir.
What about the Confederate flag now and NASCAR? And
Yes, sir.
What's the situation?
Yeah, our policy for 2015 has not changed. So the policy at Darlington Raceway is all flags in the infield must be lowered at an hour before any on-track activity. So our policy for 2015 hasn't changed, and we really haven't gotten further than that into what we're going to do for 2016. We're trying to provide an environment that's inclusive of everyone, and that flag sometimes it symbolizes something that make people uncomfortable. But again, that's not something that we're going to decide at Darlington Raceway. That's going to be a directive from NASCAR. And we all have a voice. We all have a voice in what we think should or shouldn't happen. And I've raised my hand and voiced my concerns about what we're doing. But again, at the end of the day, that unfortunately is where we are. Yes, ma'am.
at the racetrack, and Jonathan, your father may well have been as well. Because as you probably know the history, Bob Calvin, or the Harold Races had a dream. And Bob Calvin got a group of business people together to run the track. And they were all business people who had, to do vending and those kinds of things. But, there was a time, I'm glad to see you bringing the parade back. There was a time when we had celebrities over the weekend who would be the marshal for the parade and dances and those sorts of things. So it's really refreshing to see you bring it back, not only as an economic engine for Darlington, but heaven knows Darlington needs it, but also a tourist attraction. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, the great thing that we have is we have 65 or 66 years of history, right? And during this process, as I talk about the platform, one of the things we looked at was that Southern 500 parade. They used to have, I guess I was told the story that outside of Daytona, which is our Super Bowl, the Daytona 500, Darlington was the only other racetrack where you had to bring a blazer, right? Bring a blazer so you could go eat at Darlington Country Club for dinner and all that. But they'd have 4 or 5 days worth of scheduled activity, but on Sunday after church, they'd have nothing going on the racetrack. They'd just do the Southern 500 parade. And in fact, I believe she's speaking about Clint Eastwood was the grand marshal of I think it's 62 or 3. Remember the date? Clint Eastwood?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that before that it was, oh gosh.
Rory Calhoun. Rory Calhoun.
Yeah, so we, so we're bringing it back, and it's we're not really bringing Rory Calhoun, but
What is it about this track that makes Darlington unique?
yeah. So if you guys have never been to Darlington, the story goes that Harold Brasington was playing a card game. I don't know if this is true or not, but it's a great story to tell. So he was playing in a card game, and he bet the guys that he bet the guy on a hand of cards that he would beat him, and he wanted the land to build the racetrack. It was some farmland. So of course he won, and then he started building the racetrack. Well, he built which is now turns 1 and 2, and then got to the backstretch, started going into 3, and he realized there was a minnow pond in his way. So when the landowner, Mr. Ramsey, gave him the land, he wanted to keep his minnow pond. So Mr. Brasington called Mr. Ramsey and said, "Hey, I need you to fill in that minnow pond." He said, "Hell no, I like fishing on that pond. This thing's going to be a waste of time and money." So our racetrack is uniquely shaped like an egg. Because turns 3 and 4 are really tight, which is really unique for the racers because when they set up the race cars, you can't set up for both ends of the racetrack. You got to give on one end to be able to get through the other end. And so it's very unique. It's very different. The tires wear out in a hurry, so the drivers are slipping and sliding. You ask any driver in the garage, Darlington is one of the 3 or 4 races in their career that they must win in order to feel like they've made it. Because there's so much history with the facility and how it gets there.
Yes, back in 1971, I had a sorority sister that was in this Southern 500 contest, and so we went through the race, and she got this most beautiful leg, so all the beer people rushed her because they wanted her to ride on the front of their pace car. So I had her as her chaperone, who was also, she was 21 and I was too. I had to ride in the front seat of the car, in the passenger seat, while she sat on the front with the vinyl high white boots up to the knees and the hot pants. And so I'm sure there are enough people here that remember all of that. So I had a neat experience of going around that track on a Greyhound bus because they took all the contestants and the chaperones. I thought the bus was going to fall over because of the way the thing was fine.
Oh, yeah.
But beyond that, this past summer, I don't know if everybody knows, but I had the opportunity to take my nephews here with me over there last summer, and one of your kind staff people, I just wanted to show him the track because he'd never been over there. So we just went over there, and the lady, as you go in, said, we could give him a ride around the track. So somebody came and put him in a car, and he kept running around that track 2 or 3 times. So I don't know if y'all know that that's a great thing to do with your grandchildren or nieces and nephews or great whatever.
Thank you. So one of the things that has been ingrained in me since I started the sport is fan access. NASCAR gives fans access to the playing field up until the drivers strap in their cars and start the motors. So it'd be like basically being on the sideline of a Carolina game as Spurrier's calling the first play. right? I mean, that's the kind of access that we've always granted our fans, and so that has been ingrained in me. And when I got to the racetrack, the first day I was there, this young boy came and they were checking it out, and they said, "Oh, you can go up to the overlook and check out the track." I said, "Overlook?" I said, "We need to give this kid a ride." And they said, "Well, we don't do that." I said, "Well, we do now." So if you come to Darlington Raceway, and this is a free service, but if you come to Darlington Raceway, you've gone out of your way. It ain't like Darlington Raceway is on the way to anywhere. It's not like, "Oh, I'm just going to stop by on my way to wherever." So you obviously made an effort, so we need to make an effort. So we started giving rides, so anybody that comes, we offer you guys a ride around the track. Because at the end of the day, that's a great sales tool, right? I'm sure they probably try to throw a sales pitch on you, as they should. But it's a great way also for them to make a connection, especially with these young kids. Every sporting entity right now is struggling to find that next generation of fan. Because the kids these days, this is their identity, right? Well, I remember when I turned 16, on my 16th birthday, I went and got my driver's license. My assistant's daughter, so 17, she still didn't have her learner's permit. She'd rather have her phone. And so we got to figure out a way to get them off this, and we get excited about the things that are happening in sports.
And your museum is very interesting too.
Oh, the museum, yeah, we love the museum.
You got a guy in the corner on the right.
Yes, sir. Back in the back, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm Darren Thomas. I'm originally from Florence, so I'm a PD boy with the raceway in my blood. About 2 years ago, we signed an agreement with Max Siegel and Max Siegel Sports, representing NASCAR's diversity arm, to help them grow their numbers within the NASCAR framework beyond the traditional base. Have you been pleased with what you've seen in terms of growth from a diversity standpoint beyond the traditional NASCAR base?
Yeah, you know what? I think we've made great strides. I think we've made great strides in the last 8 years, 10 years. I had the opportunity early in my career to work with Bill Lester, who was the first African American to make a NASCAR Sprint Cup Series start since Wendell Scott. And I was very involved in that process and how we promoted that and helping Bill make his first start. And I'll tell you, from when I started in the sport in 2002 to today, we've made significant progress. Now, that's not to say that there's not significant progress yet to be done, but we're moving in the right direction to be as inclusive as possible.
What's the capacity of, how many tickets will you sell?
Our capacity is about 57.5 in the grandstand, and then we have obviously all of our infield camping and all of our suites. So all in on Sunday, if we sell the place out, we'll have almost 100,000 people on the property. And we'll get you off the property in less than 2 hours. Or somebody's losing their job. Yes, sir.
One of the folks that goes back a long time, I remember the old stock cars that originally ran around the track. I'm just curious if there are any of the old stock cars that still run, that you could run a couple around the track for people to see what it used to look like.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We got one coming in 2 weeks. Somebody rebuilt one that Harry Gant ran in the early 80s, a true stock car. And he's bringing it back to run. The challenge we have is our racetrack's very fast, and it's like, if you don't know, people ask all the time, well, why don't you run any of these weekly series races? Because the people driving those weekly series races can get hurt in a hurry. I mean, we're traveling on Sunday, you'll see cars going 205, 206 miles an hour getting into turn 3, and a stock car, right? And a car that's not made to go that fast. So we have to be very careful about how we utilize the racetrack itself, because you don't want to put anybody in a position where they get hurt. But to your point, we have done a couple of things with some of the old stock cars, but there are not that many of them left. A stock car now is a relative term, because all those cars are handmade. There's nothing stock about them other than there's tubing that you buy from the stock car steel guy, right? That's about it. Yes, sir.
Yes, I used to work for a company that had a very close relationship and partnership with DuPont, and of course DuPont's been a big supporter for a long time with Jeff Gordon, so that put us. What I was always fascinated is the technology of this industry, the technology that's there, and how that translates back to the automotive industry, which is so important to this state. So these cars, and I know making additives that we made, we learned from the from NASCAR about how to improve and make these things, as additives for gasoline, as paint additives, all this other. So NASCAR represented an industry we learned from.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started in the sport in 2002 on the race team side, we had two engineers for the entire company. And we had 350 employees, and we're a $55 million company, so 2 engineers. When I left the race team side in 2012, we had 67 engineers. 67. This sport is truly now being driven by engineers and engineering. And to your point, a lot of the things that you see in your street car today are things that we have tested in our sport through GM, through Toyota, through Ford, and been able to make it applicable to the street cars. And I think that's the attraction from the manufacturers to our sport is, the things that we do, they want to be able to translate into the street cars that the consumer buys. And we're getting there. I think next year you'll see a dash in all the Cup cars, all the big Sprint Cup Series cars, that it'll be all digital. And in fact, you can be able to go online and you can watch in real time all the telemetry from each race car. So we're getting there. It took a long time, but we are certainly have already and continue to move in that direction.
We certainly can learn from the safety that's there too.
Absolutely, and the safety innovation that's come since Dale Earnhardt died in 2001 has been incredible. And every time there's an accident, we take it as our responsibility to learn something. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Kyle Busch this year, he wrecked in Daytona on Saturday and broke his leg and had a compound fracture, broke his ankle, and by hitting a wall. And the wall didn't have safer barriers, which is what we have in the majority of our racetracks. It's a wall and then some foam inserts and then an outer or an inner wall. So the wall actually takes a lot of the hit away from the driver. So we didn't have it in that area. So we went to work and did about a $80,000 study on where we needed to add those walls. And now we're doing a high 8-figure project across all of our properties to make sure that we have safer barriers everywhere. So again, same with the fence. The fence, if you guys saw on the news, the 3-car got into the fence in Daytona, and the fence did its job. The reason it did its job is because we learned something from the last time a car got in the fence in 2012. So the safety innovations that not only the race teams but the tracks are implementing certainly are helping keep both our fans and the drivers safe.
After Darlington, what's your favorite track? Daytona, Talladega, where would you suggest we go after?
Well, and I'm not saying this because I work there. Darlington has always been my favorite track. In fact, it was the first track that I brought my boys to, and there's just something special about it. But there's the cool thing about our sport is it's very unique. No 2 tracks, even though they might even be configured the same, are alike. If you were 22 years old and you were going with your buddies on a bachelor party, I'd tell you to go to Talladega because you don't really care about the race. It's like the Camden Cup. You don't even know there's a horse race going on. You just know there's a big party going on. So it's really dependent on what you're looking for. Bristol Motor Speedway, which isn't in our company, but the night race at Bristol is incredible. You can feel it. You can feel the energy of the 180,000 fans. I will encourage you all. Daytona International Speedway is spending $450 million right now redoing the entire Daytona International Speedway. So the track itself isn't changing, but everything else is. And the amount of money that our company has invested into the Daytona International Speedway is incredible, and it's going to change the way that our race fans view the sport. And I had the opportunity during the 500 this year to go sit in these grandstands, and you feel like you're sitting across the street at a football stadium. The way that the seats are pitched, and you can see the entire facility. It's truly incredible. Yes, sir.
Do you ever think that there'll be a chance that a female driver will ever win a race? She doesn't seem to be making much progress in this matter.
I beg to differ with you. And the reason I say that is if you've looked at maybe not her finishing position, but how she's run and her average position during the race, over the last 3 years, she's done a nice job. Now, I'll give you that she's in the best equipment out there. All 3 of the other drivers do extremely well. But she is making progress. That being said, I'm not sure Danica Patrick can take the next step. But there's so many talented race car drivers in the system at Dillon Motor Speedway and Florence Motor Speedway and Myrtle Beach Speedway that probably will never see NASCAR because they just don't get that opportunity. And I've in fact raced, I race a little street stock every now and again, and I've raced with a female driver and she whooped all the butts. She's real good.
They do great on I-26.
Oh, maybe we should get a couple of those guys and try to put them in the system. Thank you, guys.
Chip, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule. Here's a token of our appreciation, and we look forward to the race. Thanks. Next week's speaker, President-elect John Bakis, who's going to be with us.
Next week, we have Steve Towns. He's the CEO of Ranger Aerospace and the chairman of the State Aerospace Commission. And it's going to be interesting to see what he can enlighten us on.
Super. We'll see you all then. Please stand as we sing.